Note that all are present, Mayor Gary McNamara, Deputy Mayor Joe Bacchetti, Mark Gomes, Paul Sweet, and myself, Chris Hales, and also from the OPP is Inspector Glenn Miller, Staff Sergeant Jamie Smith, Sergeant Byron Hornick, and from the administrative staff, Margaret Myzik Evans is our secretary. Our recording secretary, as always, is Ellen Proichat, and we're getting our IT support from Sean Firth. So at this time, I would like to ask if there is any disclosure of pecuniary interest based on the agenda as presented, as a supplementary agenda as presented today. Having seen none, we'll move on. I would like to have an approval of our previous, approval of our agenda, our supplementary agenda, so that I'd like a motion that the supplementary agenda for the Police Services Board meeting dated Thursday, September 10th, as duplicated and delivered to the members thereof, be accepted. I'm looking for, it's moved by Paul, seconded by Mark, all in favor. Thank you. We'll move on. Approval of our previous minutes. I've read them. I'm sure everybody has. So I'm looking for that a motion that the regular minutes of our June 11th, 2020 meeting of the Police Service Board be as duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted. I'm looking for a mover. No. Mayor McNamara, seconded by Deputy Mayor Joe Bacchetti. All in favor? And that is passed. Thank you. Well, we're right down to our monthly reports. Now, I understand, Jamie, Staff Sergeant Smith, that you will be presenting?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we are looking at the overview report. I think, yes, there it is. It's up on the screen. So we'll have, maybe if you would take us through that. And I would ask you, if you're moving pages, etc., just identify which page you're on so that we can keep up with you, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and members in attendance tonight. I'll just give you a quick overview of things that have been going on here lately. I won't take too much time, but we did a presentation to council, myself and Inspector Miller, on the 20th of July, I believe, in regards to the satisfaction survey. And we also discussed traffic issues within the town of Tecumseh and the importance of documenting them properly. Also, as of late, you may or may not have heard of Caledonia, what's going on there. So all across the region, we've been supporting Caledonia the best we can with sending officers there on overtime here and there. Continue to push for traffic enforcement within the detachment. Today we started with the kids back to school. We started with the school patrols with enforcement in and around or visibility in front of the schools today. And also later in the day, Mark forwarded an email concern from a citizen in regard to a traffic complaint. And I reached out to that person and we had a discussion back and forth, which I think she was very happy to hear from us. So if you want, we'll start out, I think it'll be page 4. For the top calls for service. So for our top calls for service, I had discussions with town council, with Marg and the mayor in regards to traffic enforcement occurrences, and my goal was to push that forward with officers creating proactive traffic enforcement. And as you can see, in the month of July, we kind of met that goal. With having 66, with traffic complaints being right behind it, 59. So similar to our meeting on the 28th of July, we can see in all the towns really, but Tecumseh, there's a heavy focus on traffic. As we move along with the bylaws and alarms, you can see at the end there, dangerous conditions. A question was raised about that as to what the 16 calls for service were for that, for dangerous conditions. And most of it was lights out at intersections at some of the, within Tecumseh, and firework calls, people calling in regards to the dangerous condition of fireworks going off within our community. And then if you want to go over to page 5. So total calls for service, we can see a decrease overall in the majority of the communities. There's been a 28.4% decrease. So in Tecumseh, where we've had the past couple of years, about 760, we're down to 590. So again, this gives us time to focus on our traffic-related issues and other issues within our communities. And I think this has a lot to do with the 911 calls once again. If you want to go to page 6. Page 6 there, we're seeing decreases in violent crime and also in property crime, 24% decrease in violent crime. And we're seeing a 23% decrease in the property crimes as well. So 2 years ago, we had 107 calls for service in regards to property crime in July, and then they went down to 40 and then down to 32 last month. And on to page 7, motor vehicle collisions. They're down in the community of Tecumseh, down to 37 from 50 and 32 the previous years. And we're seeing a 8.3 increase in motor vehicle collisions right now. And our fatalities have remained the same, with 6 collisions resulting in 6 deaths. And then page 8. With our impaireds, and I think Inspector Miller would like to speak about this at some point. Our impaireds are increasing. We're seeing a 58% increase in impaired driving. Many of them are as a result of our officers doing vehicle stops and catching the drivers. A lot of times we rely on the public to call them in through 911. However, recently our officers have been doing a great job with stopping the impaired drivers. Unfortunately, people are still taking those risks and driving while impaired by alcohol or drug. Inspector, did you want to speak about that at the end of it?
I can do that right now, Jamie, if
Okay.
it's okay with the chair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, while we continue to remain very pleased with the response from the public in reporting instances of impaired driving or distracted driving, I must say that I continue to be disappointed, quite disappointed really, in the actions of those individuals who feel that it's okay to drive while impaired or under the influence of alcohol or drugs. We're arresting a large number of impaired drivers, and we're looking at those instances that are taking place each day. So despite what the repercussions of an impaired driving conviction are, it appears that people are willing to continue to take that risk, and that is a very dangerous risk for sure. And we spent a lot of time in the media talking about this. We spent a lot of time talking with our partners, such with MAD Canada as well. And we continue to remain extremely vigilant within Essex County. That's why you can see the large number of impaired drivers that we're continuing to take off the road. And you know, it's a bad choice that people are continuing to make. And I guess both myself and Jamie, and I know Paul, certainly through his policing career, I've continued to see this. And the assumption is that I won't get caught by the police. And as we've indicated before, that you don't need to be seen by the police. You simply need to be seen by a member of the public who are very good in contacting us immediately. And this is usually resulting in the apprehension of these individuals. They pose a risk to our officers. They pose a risk to all the citizens of the town of Tecumseh and our adjoining communities. When people get into a car, knowing that they have a level of impairment with all the options that are available to them, yet they continue to take that chance. And sadly, we continue to investigate serious motor vehicle collisions and fatalities that are related to alcohol. So just kind of not a forewarning, because we've made that very clear, absolute zero tolerance for impaired driving within the county. So if you get stopped for the police, then you should well know ahead exactly what the response from us is going to be, and we'll leave that up to the courts as to what their decisions are. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, we'll have other questions at the end of the presentation. So Jamie, you can please continue.
Thank you, Inspector, and thank you, Chair. Driver's license suspensions in July, they're up a little bit with 4. And then page 9. Criminal code charges, they went up a bit. They went up across the county there by 10.9%. Drug offenses, I could speak to why we've seen an increase in Tecumseh towards the end of this, but there was a warrant executed in Tecumseh at some point in July. And I think that's in one of the notable occurrences at the end of this presentation. If you want to flip up to page 10. As you can see, again, our commitment to traffic safety and the message that we've been getting out to our officers about traffic enforcement. You can see a substantial increase in July with our POA stats, which I'm happy about. You know, we're up to 144 charges. Unfortunately, people continue to speed, and unfortunately, we're still catching people. And I'm sure there's a lot of education going out there as well. But I'm happy to see that we're addressing the issues within Tecumseh in regards to the traffic concerns that are being raised. Our tickets have went up 26.3% from last year. Traffic stops, you can see from that as well. You can see in 2018, we were at 121. And that seemed to be across the board for the entire county, that each community was in or around over 100 to 120. They went down a bit in July 2019, and now we're back up. We had 125, and we're near the top of the list, aside from Leamington and our provincial officers out on the highway, that the provincial officers are just focusing on traffic there. Page 11. There has been an increase in mental health response unit calls. We're seeing a 25% increase in that. Tecumseh has went up approximately 5 calls from last year. So with our YCERT teams and MHRU teams and MCERT, maybe perhaps we're capturing them a little bit better, or maybe the pandemic is creating more calls to the police with people in crisis. 911 calls on page 11 there at the bottom, down significantly by about 140. Well, we're seeing a 90% decrease, so that's excellent. We went from 998 calls in 2019 down to 99, which is huge. Page 12, our alarms. It's been a bit of a decrease overall. Tecumseh still sees a significant portion with 33. Ride programs. There was one ride, we're slowly getting back into them, and people feeling comfortable doing the ride programs and stopping vehicles. We still get people that are uncomfortable rolling down their windows or have concerns that the officer was too close to them. Auxiliary, we brought them back, so we've had two patrols by them in Tecumseh. And then the last page, the notable investigations, and this goes to the occurrence involving drugs. And I believe Marg might have rode her bicycle by that morning when they were executing the warrant. So there's 3 individuals that were arrested. A large sum of cash and a quantity of cocaine, fentanyl, and marijuana were seized. They were subsequently charged with trafficking cocaine, possession of a Schedule III substance, possession of property over, possession of cannabis for the purpose of selling, and possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. So that could also relate to our increase in criminal code charges also for this month. And another call, you might remember seeing on social media a male party stealing a bike out towards South Talbot Road in Tecumseh in the south end. That male ended up making his way all the way out to Middlesex area through Chatham, where he stole a tractor. He tried to steal a motorcycle. It turns out that the gentleman was from Tennessee, and he swam across, I'm going to assume, the Detroit River or Lake St. Clair, and ended up in Canada from Tennessee. So he was arrested and identified for some of those property crimes. And I think that's it for the report.
Do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? I would have one, and that's the increase in stops. I'm just going to go back. We don't need to, with regard to impaired driving. Are you finding a shift in, alcohol versus drug, or is it pretty much constant the way?
Yeah, I'll just speak to that, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, alcohol seems to be kind of dominant, but I think there is a mixture now that we're
Yeah.
seeing. So it's sometimes it is the cannabis products or it's other opioids within the system as well that are taking place. So we are making those seizures in vehicles because it's pretty notable as far as the odor of cannabis products or other illicit drugs when they're being used in the car. So alcohol has always been a factor for us. And again, I think that people feel that, I've done it for so long, I'm not going to get caught. Well, we've been to far too many collisions, dealt with far too many families. It is happening. It's happening today. I dare say it's probably happening within the county right now, that there's individuals that are driving impaired, and this has got to stop. It absolutely has to stop. And I know that I've always had the strong support of the Tecumseh Police Service Board and the community as well, in doing our absolute best that we can to stop this. And I'm not suggesting that people don't take time to enjoy themselves. Absolutely, we want them to. And we want them to take advantage of those places where they go, whether it's friends or neighbors or other licensed establishments. But there's just lots of things available to people anymore that they don't have to get in the car and drive home. And they seem really surprised when they get stopped. And you're not going to be able to plead your case with an OPP member on this issue at all. So we're going to continue, as I said, with the support of the community and through your leadership as well, is doing our absolute best so that we don't have to make any very bad visits and difficult visits to family members because there's been a collision.
Yeah. And I continue to be impressed with the fact that citizens of Tecumseh do not hesitate to call in when they see something. They have no tolerance for that, which is excellent. Paul, I saw your hand coming up. Did you have a question?
Yes, through the chair. Under the provincial offenses statistics there, with the increase, I'm just wondering if there's any, the breakdown of those, was there, if you happen to know, was there any numbers as far as the unnecessary noise charges that we talked about in our last board meeting?
No, I'm not familiar with any, Mr. Sweet. I haven't had anybody come to me in regards to the noise complaints. I know we've been addressing some of the issues along County Road 22 with the vehicles speeding up and down there, and hearing them, the motors running loud and that. But I haven't had anybody come back to me to say that they've laid that charge as of yet. So I think the difficulty in that is, the officer observing that vehicle committing that offense. So I think, as residents, they hear it up and down their street, but there's not an officer around, or the officer's not positioned in a way that vehicle's racing by. So no, I don't believe we've had any of those tickets issued at this point.
I think Paul is pretty sensitive to that too, because right at the end of Riverside Drive, Brighton, there's a couple of people in our neighborhood that own fastback Mustangs who have got custom muffler systems that you can hear them everywhere through our neighborhood. It's astounding. And I think that, they're breaking down and then accelerating at that corner, and that's right where Paul lives too. So, yeah.
Right.
Any other questions? Yes, Mayor McNamara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say thank you to Staff Sergeant Smith in regards to the traffic enforcement. I think that's a critical piece for us in our community, and certainly the work that's being done. Hopefully, we can continue because we're still seeing it. I'm going to still complain about County Road 22. It's still on the weekends. It's like the Indy 500 sometimes when and I know you can't be there all the time, but I certainly appreciate the report and then that you did send out. And I forget how many stunt drivers have been ticketed on that particular stretch. So I'd like to see that obviously continue. Just to touch on a little bit on our inspector in terms of the impaired driving. I can tell you it does really bother myself as well when I see the numbers increasing, and I don't know if it's because of the pandemic and people are more at home or whatever. I mean, it shouldn't be any excuses. On a personal side, my son came very close in losing his life 2 years ago on County Road 42 on a drunk driver who destroyed his garden tractor. Actually, he had just stepped off it, and as well as the previous year, he called into dispatch and witnessed, right in his own eyes, the loss of 3 individuals on County Road 42 due to a drunk driver and impaired. So I know he even talks about it even today. So it's something that's going to be with him for a long time. When he witnessed it, a loss of life and so forth, and that the destruction of families and so forth. So for those who are streaming it and certainly watching our meeting here today, it's crucial that if you see anything out there, a driver that's erratic and so forth, don't hesitate to call it in and continue to try to make our roads as safe as possible, because the loss of life is it's one thing for the drunk driver themselves, but it can wipe out a family in an instant, and it's something that is extremely avoidable. I think it's and that messaging needs to continue to be sent out there on an ongoing basis that will not be tolerated. And I know that officers, there's no, give me a break or give me a chance. I mean, it's handcuffs and you're charged and sorry about your luck, but you got to pay the price. So we got to continue to be vigilant and make those 911 calls. That's one where I do agree on those 911 calls. That are critical and important for the life of our citizens.
Are there any more comments or questions? Not seeing any, then I would ask for a motion that the OPP report for the month of May through July be received. Moved by Mayor McNamara, seconded by Mark Gomes. All in favor? Thank you. Passed. Okay. I am remiss, and I know that Ellen is in the background. Item number F, delegations. We did not mention that there are no delegations for this meeting, so we will just put that to bed right now. Item H is reports, and we have a report from it's a report that came in on the mental health related calls and the new community servicing grant program. And that is, I think, I don't know if everybody's read it. I don't know if there's any comments on it, but we just note that we need a motion that we receive it. So are there any comments? Mark, Paul, did you have a comment or did you want to make the motion to receive that report? No? All right. Mark, say I think you're muted, Mark.
I was muted. I'd make the motion to receive it.
All right, seconded by Mark.
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you. Under communications, action required, there are none. And under communications for information purposes, we have several, from Thomas Carrick, OPP Commissioner, which was their complete strategic plan. I've read it. I'm hoping we all have read it. I would comment that there's an alignment of what we've been doing here and talking about constantly. This may very well be the last year that this strategic plan is done in this fashion under the new Police Services Act. There's more of a bottom-up component than there has been in the past. So I don't know if anybody wanted to make a comment on the strategic plan. It's very inclusive, very well done. Nice. Yes, please.
Yeah, the only comment I want to make is in terms of, it's something that I've always stressed, with my involvement in the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, that, one size doesn't fit all. And depending on which region you're from, it's critical that there is a component. So I'm certainly looking forward to the development of the community safety plan. I think that's a critical piece as well, where I'm sure that the Inspector Miller or certainly the rank and file folks will identify. And even when you look at the reports from one community to the next, there is some drastic, well, I would say drastic, but there are changes, of what's important to a certain community, and might not necessarily be the same thing in another community. And as policing goes, could be, more drug offenses here, more violent crimes there, and so forth. So there needs to be obviously a critical piece where we can add to it. I think any strategic plan, I don't care what it is, they're living documents that need to be, in over the course of a year or two or three, need to be looked at, upgraded, and certainly amended to deal with the situation at hand. So I'm looking forward to working with obviously the board and my municipal council here, and certainly to help in conjunction with our local police service to bring in I think the concerns of the community and build that into the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the makeups of the communities, there's all kinds of different components, and First Nations components, there's, immigrant status components, etc., all kinds of different things. And that's, I think, part of the basis of the new Police Service Act and the composition of the police service boards is going to be mandated that our communities reflect that properly. So, we can move on then. Are any other comments on that? No? We'll move on to the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards OPP Detachment Board composition. That was sent around from our association. It kind of falls in line with what we previously agreed to as our 5 contract municipalities. I would say that now that there's a potential to be 4 contract municipalities in the future, we may be discussing the review of our plan for making a detachment-based board based on the new realities of what the component municipalities are. So that'll probably be something we defer until we see what goes on with Leamington and their search for I guess a different police service. So we can pass that for sure. And finally, the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards letter of appreciation for sponsorship for the annual general meeting. Well, good for us. We were one of the municipalities that actually did put the sponsorship in, and I don't know how successful they were, because the numbers weren't reflecting our sponsorships for that online meeting, but I think it's important if we do that. Our association suffers greatly if we don't get those sponsorships, so very glad we did that. The Regional Municipality of Durham, better late than never. I'm really glad that they've also at their meeting concurred with what came out of council and under Mayor McNamara with regard to the 911s, and that was a good thing. Ms. Stiles. And then finally we have, this is an annual letter as far as I am concerned with regard to the obligations for memorandums for 2 municipalities for staffing for courts. And I think that's something that comes up. I don't believe we ever take action on that, because I don't think our municipality is part of it. Mayor McNamara, please.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment as well. This is something that we've talked about, and I know the association has worked very hard, and that was part of the provincial and municipal fiscal review, and the uploads and costs, and then the upload to the court security and prisoner transportation costs. That was 125 million that was uploaded, and then that was completed in 2018. And the association is watching this very carefully as well, because obviously we don't want to backslide into whatever new review, and we're not opposed to that by no means. If there's improvements to be made, that's wonderful. But we certainly don't want to lose that upload, that 125 million that was dealt with in certainly 2018. And by the way, we did that over a period of time to get the full value of those particular uploads. And we felt, and we still feel, that that's a provincial responsibility. So we should be cognizant of the fact that the review is certainly forthcoming, but we want to make sure we don't backslide, and then whatever improvements or amendments or changes that are made on that, it doesn't fall the financial responsibility back onto the property tax owner.
Yeah, exactly. It's a provincial issue. And I think that was kicked around by AMO when they were looking at the new Police Service Act, and I know the OAPSB also looked at that, and so that's, I think that's something people need to watch on behalf of our ratepayers. Are there any other questions with regard to these reports? I'd like a motion then that the correspondence be received. Joe Pichetti, seconded by Mark Gomes, all in favor. Thank you. Passed. We go on to old business, I think. We looked at the first of old business is the Town of Tecumseh 2019 Citizen Satisfaction Survey. This is a memo that's come to us, to our board, from Margaret with regard to the presentation that was made to council and then council's comments back to us for action. Margaret, I don't know if you wanted to lead that. I can certainly respond to what, but maybe you just want to set it up a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, you're quite right. This was essentially captured in the minutes of the meeting of July the 28th, when OPP administration presented to council. I think that essentially these were some of the discussion points that were raised by council during and after that presentation, and many of them are largely operational in nature. And by providing them to the OPP through the board, it's hoped that they will be addressed. I think the only one that is perhaps something that the board may want to weigh in on is number 8, and we can talk about that under some agenda items to come, if you wish, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
But otherwise, I think we're content to have brought these to the attention of the staff sergeant and the inspector for their consideration. Also note that in number 6, our Public Works and Environmental Services Department is working with the OPP to try to coordinate where the black boxes and the speed trailers are parked to assist in providing useful data to the OPP for enforcement purposes.
Now, Margaret, I was quite willing to review this and make some notes for discussion at our next meeting so that we could formally go back to council if you think that's necessary to go back to council with this.
Through the chair and certainly subject to any comments that the mayor make, I don't believe that council is expecting us to reply. I believe this was provided for information and for for the OPP to consider in their operations.
Oh, that's excellent. Then I think the one thing we can talk about is enhancements to the contract in response to what was said at council. So, and that's in budgetary. So that's coming up, I believe. Yeah. All right, very good. And then we had also an excessive noise. I think it was full business in that. Again, I think that's an email. Let me just bring that up. Yeah, that's from Laura Moy.
Mhm.
And she's just confirming that our recommendation to council has been adopted. So I think that's excellent. That's come right around. I know that there are people that would like us to be out there with sound meters and pulling people over, but I mean, I think that's just not practical. And I'm hoping that that the one or two of the big offenders who regularly travel up, as the mayor has pointed out, 22, and I will point out Riverside Drive and Brighton Road, that there'll be a time when they get face to face with a cruiser and people can really hear the astounding amount of noise that comes out of these vehicles. So, you know, but maybe we can give somebody a ticket. We can give somebody a ticket and then start, you know, hopefully that'll start the ball rolling and people thinking better of that kind of behavior. But anyway, now the next item is our community safety and well-being plan update, and I think you were going to lead that, Margaret, if you would, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So it's been a little bit of time that's passed since we've been active on that particular project. And due to the pandemic, the project was actually paused between March 18th and June 1st of this year. Only recently has the project coordinator reached back out to the municipalities and the roundtable members to reinitiate it. Also on April the 14th, the province announced an extension to the CSWB adoption deadline past January 1st of 2021, but a revised date has not yet been announced. Certainly it's been the recommendation from this area that be amended to a deadline of January 1st, 2022, but we're still waiting on an announcement from the Ministry of Solicitor General's office to confirm what their expectations are in that regard. So as I mentioned, the re-engagement of the regional systems leadership table is underway. We're trying to get some meetings organized for this fall to get the ball rolling. And the consultant contract is being finalized yet again because it's had to shift a bit given the shift in timelines. So that's underway as well. So we are now kind of operating on a new project timeframe, and as I mentioned, yet to be determined what the end date is once we have an end date from the ministry. In order to get back into everyone's frontal lobe, the project coordinator is looking to do some municipal council presentations this fall, and we are on the hook, or on the books rather, to host one of these presentations in either October or early November. And once we have settled on a date for that, we will, through Alan, inform the board so that you may want to tune in that night at council to watch that presentation. It'll be a special meeting held before the regular council meeting. And then I think it's also safe to say that as the engagement plan develops, it's expected to be primarily by virtual means with no or limited face-to-face types of engagement. However, you know, I think we're adapting to that new mode of communications, and that we will make the best of it and get community input as we go along. So that's essentially all I have at the moment. We have not yet sat as a regional systems leadership table, but we'll keep this on the agenda so that as those meetings unfold, we can provide the board with an update.
Margaret, just for the benefit of people who may be listening in or watching in here, maybe we should say the community safety and well-being plan is mandated for all municipalities across the province of Ontario. It's a must-do. Are we still, for the benefit of creating basically an Essex County, all of municipalities in the Essex County region general plan with an addendum that's going to be specific for the needs of each of the constituent municipalities? That's still the way it is?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Chair. It'll be, so the coordination is happening through the County of Essex. However, as policing is under the jurisdiction of area municipalities, there will be an appendix for each of the 7 municipalities that will require approval by the area municipality before it's considered to be the plan in effect for that jurisdiction. And then, of course, Windsor is the other partner, and they're completing their plan for the city of Windsor.
Mhm. And again, for the benefit of people listening in, this is a very complex process that is being led by a consultant, which hopefully will streamline the process, which could be really natty to be sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, then we can go on to, where are we now? Okay, a mediation, okay, that's under the presentation of Margaret. This is under new business. A community mediation update. This is the mediation plan. You can just bring that up.
All right, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an exciting pilot program that Council has supported, and it is at the invitation of Community Mediation of Windsor, Essex. So this organization reached out to Tecumseh to see if we would be interested in piloting a different form of dispute resolution through trained mediators to help with the types of disputes that may happen between neighbors that really aren't a property standards bylaw violation or don't really fall under any of our bylaws, and could also be useful to the police service in dealing with situations that are neighbor-to-neighbor disputes. So we have signed on for a year's pilot program, and we'll be making referrals to that service and assisting by allowing them to meet in the town premises here, of course, practicing the safe measures associated with the pandemic as mandated through Public Health Unit. And we have undertaken training through the Community Mediation Windsor Essex in August, and 3 members of the OPP local service to Tecumseh have also participated in that training as well, so that they have firsthand information and are able to access that service as they see fit on their calls as well. So we're excited and kind of hopeful that that will help people be able to deal with issues that kind of fester and cause friction between them. Mostly for our purposes, it's often property related, but not a violation of the property standards bylaw. But it can be anything. It can be, you know, they practice mediation for even things like you know, disputes between students who share a residence, or disputes between of a more personal nature in other relationships. So it is a wide-ranging program that is available free of charge to the public, and as mentioned, our expense would only be to assist by providing accommodations to enable people to meet with the mediator in a location that's convenient for Tecumseh residents. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any comments or questions? Okay, the one comment that I would make just for the record is this does not impinge in any way on the Ontario Civilian Police Commission work, you know, with regard to mediation of issues with police from citizens. So this is complete. This is mostly property related and personal issues related, which is good. Excellent. We'll move on to item number 2, which is the police service contract update. And I think this is at the point we want to talk about enhancements that were into the report that you made to the police board. So, and Margaret, you're on the hook again. So it's once again, it's your issue.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to report back. Ellen and I had the opportunity to sit with and meet via Zoom, or actually I think it was via phone, with Sergeant Peter Marshall from the OPP, just to kind of get the ball rolling. As everyone is aware, the OPP contract for Tecumseh with the OPP comes up at the end of this year, actually. the 5 years is up. And they typically get started in October when the final billing statements are available to put together a proposal that they would then send out to the municipality for consideration. So it is a standard contract, same as what Essex has and the other jurisdictions within the county. And it is between the municipality and the Ministry of the Solicitor General. So the proposal will essentially contain an executive summary, who the OPP are, what they provide, the standard contract, and then it does provide for, to your point, Mr. Chair, the option of an enhancement, and that would could take the form rather of a dedicated officer to address specific issues that have been raised in the municipality that maybe aren't being addressed to to the expectations of the community. Sergeant Marshall used traffic as an example, and in terms of when we would make a request, he suggested that we would need to discuss this with Inspector Miller, and would need to be some service extraordinary to the normal policing services that are provided through the typical staff complement. And so given that also we are in the beginning stages of preparing our budget for 2021, it's fortuitous that this type of conversation would happen now in the event that there might be that type of consideration made as early as next year. In terms of why we're doing this, with all of the talk last year about the community policing legislation for 2019, he confirms that, of course, that legislation is not yet in effect. So we are still operating under the Police Services Act, and contracts are part of that legislative regimen, and also the contract would be for the standard length of 5 years. So we're not following any other process other than what we have been under the Police Services Act. And when the new act comes into effect, it's not known how they will affect existing contracts or contracts that are in effect at that time. They may be, the regulation may declare them null and void, or they may run their course. It's not, we don't have any direction in that. So they're proceeding kind of business as usual as per past practice. And typically I understand that this process generally wraps up within a few months' time. However, if for whatever reason we don't complete it until after December 31st of this year, they would provide, be willing to provide an extension that we wouldn't just become a Section 5 board if there was a delay due to the pandemic or any other extenuating circumstances that we weren't able to complete the process by end of 2020. I asked about bylaw enforcement, and that continued to be covered in the contract, and he did say that it is an option available to municipalities under contract only. These are billable calls, and he said that he didn't know how this would be addressed under the new act, but essentially what we have now could be replicated in another contract. We did ask also what impact there might be to our contract as a result of Leamington discontinuing the OPP service, and he confirmed that it should have no effect, with the exception of potentially the base cost, which he would anticipate to be a minimal impact on the other services in this area. He confirmed that the base cost at this time is $180 per household, and it covers the detachments operating in the region, and confirmed also that the OPP does not charge municipalities for specialized services. And he then also encouraged all of us to go on to the OPP website and search for billing or search for OPP billing model if you wanted to understand the process in more depth, and that he would be available at any time for questions or presentations as requested. That is my report to you, Mr. Chair.
Comments or questions? So I have several. Number one is I would be astounded if our base cost changed. The base cost, it's always been explained to us that it's presented based on the number of people in Ontario that have contracts with the Ontario Provincial Police. The Ontario Provincial Police was just congratulated by our association for taking under its wing 200 more municipalities. Officially, we're 5.1s, and now they're going to become fully fledged municipalities. So I don't see that changing. For Paul and Mark's benefit, our previous contract had a provision for an enhancement presented to council for a dedicated sergeant for Tecumseh. That was turned down by council, and so we ended up with no enhancements to our contract. Although we had the furniture thing was not an enhancement. So if we wanted an enhancement, or the council wanted an enhancement, I believe, Margaret, the Ontario Provincial Police could cost out additional traffic enforcement personnel or something, but the council would then have to decide whether they wanted to accept that. I believe, Mayor McNamara, you would remember that, I'm sure. I think when the contract is presented by the business office, it is the base contract, and then the enhancements are articulated for discussion by council and for acceptance by council. I don't believe I'm wrong, but it's maybe Mayor McNamara can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit premature at this stage here, and I think not knowing, and it was alluded to very well by the administrator in the conversation you had with Sergeant. We're continuing to operate under the old PSA, and until we know exactly what's going to transpire at that particular time, and I think what we need to rectify in our minds as well is that what does and what am I getting for my X number of dollars? And that's a difficult piece where we're trying to figure that out. And so the pandemic, I think, has put a bit of a monkey wrench in the whole process, because dealing with the provincial government right now, it's all hands on deck on that particular issue, and that particular ministry is also involved in delivery of that, the Emergency Act and Civil Protection. And so until we get, a clearer picture of exactly what, the act is going to be and what the regulations are going to be, it'll give us a better idea as well in terms of what our move forward position in terms of our requirements for protection to our community.
Just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, so are you saying that it would be preliminary for a request to go out to the Ontario Provincial Police for a costing as an enhancement to the contract to be looked at by council for this traffic enforcement? Or are you saying that we have to think about that a little bit and then decide who's going to originate that request?
I think we got to think about it a little bit in those terms, because right now, if we were to sit down right now and sign a contract, it'd be under the old guys. And I don't know what January or February or whenever it's going to come. It's not, and I want to relay and make it very clear in my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, but my understanding as well is not like, okay, you haven't got a contract January, the cruisers are going to go down to 401.
No, it'll be extended.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we're still going to be operating under the old contract. So the point is that we've got a bit of work to do here, and we need to have that. The conversation that the CAO had with Mr. Marshall or Sergeant Marshall was preliminary, and there's certainly a lot of bit of work to do. And again, you know, we're trying to figure out the whole community safety plan and what are the basic requirements or needs to the community and so forth. And so there's a lot of pieces of the puzzles that are still outstanding. We haven't got them to finish the picture. And so we need to get some certainty in terms of the province of where, you know, when the act comes into play and the new building, you know, comes into play as well, and all of those pieces together, we'll have a better idea in terms of where we should be going.
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to make sure is that the police service board would not be considered negligent if we didn't start looking at the cost of any enhancements or requesting. That'll come from council.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great, because our position here is a governance position. It's not driving a business model. Okay, that's the only thing I wanted to note. And then I wanted to note for our two newer members that there was an enhancement offered under the old contract 5 years ago, and it was not picked up. Okay, maybe then we can. Any other questions or comments about the police budget? No. If we could move on then. We have a communication from the Ministry of the Solicitor General with regard to the grant program. This is an annual thing. Inspector Miller, I don't know if you have started to prepare any proposals under the grant program. I think this is just the first call.
Looked at it, and one of the primary things was dealing with human trafficking and love together with gangs. And I think, as the board is well aware and the community is well aware, that Essex County led the province several years ago in securing funding and developing a real proactive stance in regard to human trafficking within Essex County. That's really now built into our business model. As a result, the Interprovincial Police has formed a full-time human trafficking team. We also have trained members within Essex County as well. And well, sadly, it's not an item that has gone away, far from it. We continue to remain extremely proactive and continue to lead the way, particularly in dealing with the number of victims that we continue to support within Essex County. So we already built that into our plan, and we're doing that every day now. That's for sure.
Just for the general benefit, annually there are special programs that are generated out of our Essex detachment, which require review and approval by the police service boards. And there can sometimes be a conflict between when our boards meet and when the ministry wants these proposals sent in. So I'm just bringing it up for just common knowledge that if the detachment is looking at creating a request for some of that grant money for a special program, that we may be called upon to act fairly quickly on reviewing it with them. And then all constituent municipalities have to sign in on that application form. So I just want to make that clear. I think that's fair game, Margaret. I think we're going to have to look at if they want something with regard to when we meet and how we can accommodate them when they want an application.
Yeah, if the plan is to put in an application, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, we can move on from that. The Horizon Vehicular Break-ins, this is on our agenda, number 4L. Mayor McNamara, that I guess is something you wanted to add to the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and certainly to, and I'm sure that our police services probably are getting the calls too. And I noticed, well, it's kind of the crime of opportunity, I guess. And it's not all vehicles that are unlocked as well. I know some of the individuals' vehicles actually, windows were broken to get in, and we're seeing pockets. I know even in the Arbor, Carmelita, Poisson area, there, people breaking into vehicles. There has been going into garage, stealing bicycles. The good news is they left a real junkie bicycle, and this is a neighbor, and took their brand new bike. So it's all these crimes of opportunity, I guess, so I haven't got the answers, and maybe an educational program as well, and maybe we can get our manager's strategic plans as well to, again, lock it or is it lock it or lose it type program as well. So I'm looking at certainly the OPP in different patrols and so forth at availability. I know that many of the communities as well, and there's something I think Staff Sergeant Smith, we talked about a while back, is trying to get folks with security cameras that have, or the Ring and so forth, where a lot of the images and so forth can be captured. So if there's it's kind of the eye on you, kind of a registry of these folks, and I believe I'm not 100% sure, but I think Windsor they were looking at the same thing. It's kind of adding another tool to the toolbox for the police to be able to utilize for folks that are out there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and walking the streets and trying to break into vehicles and so forth, where if you know that it happened on this street, well, you know that there's 5 individuals that have security cameras certainly in that area. So the added patrols, and maybe this is another program that we can reach out to the community as well. We all have, many will have the security cameras there, but the real benefit is they're there for a purpose, protect your property, but at the same token, it could be a tool that could be added to the toolbox as well.
I think Paul Sweet, about a year ago, started that discussion with regard to some municipalities having registries of all the people who had security cameras, so that it could become a tool of the police service. Paul, I think that was under the context of also some monies that were some grant money that was being made available for security closed circuit.
I think at the time, the Staff Sergeant Smith had mentioned about that there was some talk of a registry, which certainly, it would. I mean, it's a pretty. I mean, as the mayor pointed out, it's a pretty valuable tool. If you've got, I think people would be very, supportive of that type of tool to register their, for that purpose, where that, if there's a, vehicles being stolen in some street, and the registry shows there's 5 or 6 people that have Ring doorbells and whatever the type of security is available, that the OPP can even blast out an email to them. Can they share that thing? I think there's, especially these days, it's becoming more prolific, and I mean it's important to.
Yeah. In American municipalities, certainly they're doing that all the time now. Yeah,
I have a Ring doorbell, and I tell you, it's become part of your. It's with the Amazon and all the types of the way how it's things have changed. It's become an important tool, so what's coming near your house kind of thing. So I mean, and I hear people are asking me about that quite daily almost. So it's becoming more and more of them out there. So it'd be a good tool to harness, that's for sure.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, maybe a question to Sergeant Smith to see if there have been more calls coming in on, I've noticed on even our report, to see if there has been more activity on vehicle break-ins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I can comment on that. I did see this on the agenda, so I did look up and pull up some stats for under our UCRs, how we capture all the criminal activity. And I'm not actually seeing an increase. And I know we spoke, and I don't know if it was our last PSB meeting, Mr. Mayor, and I know you had mentioned some of your neighbors got hit at that time. And I'm not sure, shortly thereafter, you might have bumped into some officers handing out lock it and lose it. I'm not sure if you did see that.
Yep.
Okay. So I did send officers over there right away. And recently we just did that in Leamington with our officers with the Lock It and Lose It program with our auxiliaries, handing out those cards and placing them onto the vehicles. So they hit a certain area. Our analyst took all the vehicle thefts and targeted those certain areas in a 2-block radius, and they handed out quite a few of them. So we could look at doing that, but I'm not seeing an increase so far. Like when I grabbed the stats, like back in 2015, we had 77, 2016, 49, 17, 110, 18, 175. Last year we had 62. Right now, when I checked, I believe it was earlier last week, we were sitting at 30 in Tecumseh for thefts from motor vehicles under $5,000. So I'm not seeing an increase yet, but I mean, there's still time towards the end of the year. And maybe some of those items being stolen are over $5,000, but I'm not seeing the messages from the officers stating we need to do active patrols at nighttime in this certain area because vehicles are getting hit. I don't know what the reason is, but I haven't been seeing a whole lot of them lately in any community, to be quite honest with you. We had that group of people doing it for a while, and they seemed to hit us during the 2018, 19, where we got hammered with them. So, and to your point with the camera, if I can just touch on that as well, that's kind of grown legs lately, and the inspector might be able to speak to it as well. But we have one of the officers that she had this idea as well when she was working in Leamington, and heard that I was trying to pilot the idea, and she's kind of picked it up again. And I think she's going to really try to launch it this time some way, somehow. So we might be looking at the Police Services Board to assist us in doing that, working with our towns, our partners and that to get this going again.
Paul?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to the OPP. Does niche have the ability to add to in it that, on an address that you can, that there is cameras, like what's there? Have they added? Is there any? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think the best way, Mr. Sweet, would be to maybe create one mass occurrence and just plug in the addresses there. Or I'm certain there would be a way that we could flag those addresses, like some of those high priority or somebody that's in need of safety, or make it to this call quick just because they've been victims of something in the past. We can flag those addresses. So I'm sure there's something in the system, whether it be we create a master occurrence and plug those addresses in, or we geomap it in, similar to, I know there's been talk about tickets. We could geomap it to show exact locations. We type in St. Pierre Street and it pops up with all the addresses where cameras may be. So I think it'd be a very beneficial tool. And just like you've got the Ring doorbell, I've got Arlo camera systems, and they're great to have.
No, that's good. Rather than a whole different software system to try and track it, if I think using niche and obviously you gentlemen have the expertise. I'm a little back and behind in that system, but that that would make it. I mean, it's easier to get it up and running using the existing.
If it had bigger legs, the municipality could probably capture it on their GIS system. They have everything related to municipal addresses. That could be a part of that database.
I think just a volunteer system. Just like when we're looking at neighborhood watch. Where people, it's an opportunity. I think it's great. I mean, I do have the Ring. It's great. It archives. You can go back. I could be across the, I could be in Toronto and somebody's coming up to the house. I know it goes on my iPhone. It certainly it is a great tool, and other cameras. It's just something to help our patrols and certainly our police as well. I mean, gosh, if somebody's breaking in a vehicle and you see them there and they happen to have a vehicle, like, grab a license plate and so forth. It's just I think it's a tool. It's another tool in the toolbox that, to continue to make your community even safer.
Yeah, It's just for the police to know where all these cameras are. You know, that's, and that database could be lodged in many different places, but it needs to be handy to the police so they can use that as an investigative tool. Any more comments? Please, Paul, please.
I was thinking that we could probably keep that in our back pocket when grant time comes around for students and things like that. And you know, if there's a program like that, we could get students to go door to door and, you know, fill out forms to get to the OPP to register their stuff. So there's lots of methodology to do that. That's fairly quick and simple. So, well, thank you.
Margaret, under item 5, it's the 2021 Police and Police Service Board budget, but I'm wondering if you didn't sort of touch on that, or do you have other things you'd like to bring up?
Very quickly, Mr. Chair, just some timing around that. So we are, as I mentioned, initiating the 2021 budget process, and we will be over the next month or so getting a draft budget prepared, and we'll be bringing it through the board for review before it becomes part of the budget package for council. So I guess start thinking about the budget and get your mind turned to that, so that when we come in October, we can have a fulsome conversation on a draft budget.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. And finally, Byron, Sergeant Hornick, you've waited a long time, but you're the last item. 6 is this distribution of unclaimed funds. And I have to tell you, when you sent me that email, I mean, I've been on this board 9 years. I've never heard of this, having money in the vault. God bless you for finding $1,100 bucks. I mean, but I don't, Mr. Mayor, have you ever heard of money in the OPP vault? I mean, I haven't.
Not here, but I don't know.
So at any rate, please, yeah, Sergeant Hornick, if you would just maybe go through what the source of the money is and where it physically is lying. I know what the Police Service Act says, that the disposition of the money can be used for, but I think just as background.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, members in attendance. Basically, just to outline, Part 9 of the Police Services Act indicates in Section 133, Sub 3, if 3 months have elapsed after the day that money came into the possession of the police force and the owner has not claimed it, the board may use it for the purpose that it considers in the public interest. So investigations and can take place where in the process we will seize money, and that money, be it through courts or whatever, is not claimed. For example, if somebody's arrested for theft and they're in possession of currency and they're indicating it's not mine, I don't know whose it is, all this kind of stuff, then obviously we're in possession of it. We make every attempt we can to find who the owner is. If that's impossible, after a 90-day period, it's deemed to be abandoned. And then, of course, in this section here, it indicates that it would be up to the Police Service Board to deem how that money would be best used. So in terms of audits of the vault itself in Tecumseh, come up with 4 separate occurrences over last several years where this money was not claimed and it's just basically in limbo, and it's just under $1,100. And so then the process would be now, I would have this money. There's property reports that I would require to be signed off by the board, by the chair, and then determine on what the board would decide to do with the money. Then I would facilitate that and get that money to where it's deemed to be necessary.
Now, for municipal act housekeeping, Margaret, can this go through our police service board, say to one of the like cops for the cops camp or something like that, or does it have to go into the general coffers of the town of Tecumseh and then be redistributed out?
I'd have to check, Mr. Chair. I can't really answer that at this moment in time. I don't know that we have specific rules around that, and it is, I mean, not to diminish the value of it, but a fairly nominal amount, as you know, as most of our expenditures go. I can certainly check with the treasurer to see how we would do that and whether it would flow through. I would imagine, as opposed to an envelope of cash, that we would want it to come through the organization and be distributed through the board. But
Yeah, I do think it would
Get
be
back to you.
appropriate. I do think it would be appropriate, even, but without knowing the exact mechanics of moving the money through, that this board can certainly make a motion to put it towards one of the OPP charities, or I think that would make a lot of sense, and the cop camp.
Oh,
Or
we always give, I think our community safety officer, the VIP program, where the grade 6, I think would be an appropriate area. I think that would benefit the youth in the community in terms of the values, influence, and peer program. But I mean, or the cop camp, or I mean, there's, that's where I think it, benefit the community. And
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think we do fund that program on an annual basis, but the cop camp certainly also is perfect target for this kind of money. Paul, your thoughts?
I said I could speak to a 31 board, and what they would have would be an account to say, and probably through in the case of municipality, like just a line item in the as there as the naming that fund, and then the board can disperse it out of there as to wherever. But that made it, if you're in the 31 board, if you were audited by the ministry, then it clearly there was an account, unclaimed good account, and what went out of that unclaimed good account. I know the money in this case is relatively small, but it's for auditing purposes, having an unclaimed goods account with the municipality that's dispersed out of would be helpful.
And through you, Mr. Chair, we can work out the process. So don't hinder your discussions. If you choose to do a motion today, we'll figure out the process. That's not a problem.
Then I think we could entertain a motion if someone wants to make it.
well, can we wait till Margaret will come back with
Count.
I mean, it's not that. Well, first of all, it's not $1 million. It's $1,100. But what would be our procedure? What we can do, and then once we've got the procedure, I mean, then we'll figure out where it'll be best served.
I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads yes, so I think that's probably, we would move then to defer it until such time as we had input from our administration.
I'll so move, Mr. Chair.
Seconded?
That we defer it until
Mark?
we have the procedure in place.
Yeah, so you've moved it, Mark has seconded, all in favor of the deferring it. There we go. So Byron, you get the opportunity of making another presentation at our next meeting once we know what to do. So we can
See
figure
how
out
much money I have then.
Yeah, maybe it might be a windfall.
Yeah, can you invest? Yeah, invest it. See if we can get some interest.
Yeah, there you go, Paul. Paul, I see your hand up.
Just to you, Mr. Chair, to Brian, is there a yearly auction of like bicycles that are unclaimed too with the OPP? And do we get a portion of that?
There certainly can be. I'm not sure. I'm obviously recently in this position, so I don't know what's taken place in the past. A lot of it relies on, quite honestly, logistics and maintaining this property over a yearly period. And that can be sometimes difficult depending on space. But I do know I was recently approached by Crime Stoppers,
Mhm.
and they were saying that they would take anything that we have that they could use, and they would remove it and take it to a facility that they hold everything for a period of time, and then they'll sell it. And they'll facilitate that, and even anything else that would be provided for auction, they indicated that they would take advantage of that. But that's,
Yeah.
that's their opinion. So
So we'll wait. We'll wait and see what administration directs we could do with as far as moving it around. Glenn?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just so my comment isn't missed here. This is kind of a nice problem to have, actually, and I know that there is an answer to this for sure. You have some absolutely amazing and incredible young people that do a lot of great things in the town of Tecumseh, and I've witnessed it in other areas of the province as well. And while it may not buy a lot, if you're able to use that money, either through the school systems and definitely, as the mayor properly alluded, through the CSOs who know who some of these individuals are, that may not have a lot, but do a lot for people. Might be nice coming up, certainly up to the Christmas season, new bicycles or whatever possibly that you would be able to get, or things along those lines that I think that young people would like, or whatever that happens to be. But I like the focus towards the young people to be able to do that. Also, your idea, of course, we welcome that to Cop Camp as we look after 90 young people a year. So a lot of great ideas for sure. So I'm sure that the board will come up with a good response.
It's a nice problem to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. There are no other items on new business.
I just have one item, Mr. Chair, that I want to bring to the attention. I received, I and Ward 3 and Ward 1 councilors, a lot of calls on a particular Airbnb in the community. There's factors, obviously, that the municipality, under certain bylaws we have, which we're dealing with. Also, this Airbnb seems to be getting out of hand. I know that if Staff Sergeant Smith will look at the logs, he'll see that this particular one has had probably a lot of calls. And I know that, as you know, we've been trying to direct folks to call the 1-800 number, which they have, but really to no avail. And I've had many calls from folks surrounding this particular area where they can have up to 30, 40, or 50 people at partying, and the folks that have signed the Airbnb, they're there on the weekends, and they have these pretty big parties. And as we know, you've heard the premier in other areas, especially with the pandemic, creating some real issues and creating a lot of noise. And I mean noise, they go till 2 or 3 o'clock. One individual next door said it's like Punta Cana at spring break. And so it's that 18 to 30 group. The OPP have been called, and one of them in particular, and this one takes me aback a little bit, is where, well, that's a municipal responsibility, their bylaw. And noise, the OPP can basically cease or desist, to just walk away. And I know that Councillor Dowie and myself received the calls from the individual that this was the police officer that just basically said, it's a municipal issue, so call the municipality. Well, here we go again on this whole bylaw issue. But on noise, it needs to be dealt with. The neighborhood are up in arms right now. And I know there's a petition that's being circulated as well on this particular street and the neighboring street as well. And so if we can have a conversation, Staff Sergeant Smith in particular, because of confidentiality at this stage here, I certainly don't want to bring this up here under these auspices, but the folks are really tired of these constant interruptions. I know that we're sliding into the fall season, so I'm hoping that this will certainly abate somewhat. We have to look at some sort of regulation even ourselves, in terms of how do you deal with these? And many municipalities are having, I guess, some of the difficulty, but they're coming in from the GTA, and they're coming here to party. And folks have to understand there's a pandemic on, and we're still under a Section 22 under the Health Protection or the Health Protection and Promotion Act under the guidance of our medical officer of health. I've already called and put the word to them in terms of what they can do, and they're looking at certainly other communities. You've heard the Premier yesterday. There's even comments today. Basically, we got to start charging people, and so this is an issue that is percolating, and it's getting pretty hot. And the folks on that particular street they've had it right here, and so we're as a municipality, we're going to do our part. I'm going to be writing a letter to the landowner who I believe doesn't live there. It's the kids kind of run it. And so we need to do something in particular. If there's somebody that's calling at 2:30 in the morning, the music is blaring, they're out in the pool in the back and drinking and having a good time and so forth, but at the avails of the neighborhood, police have to help us as well in dealing with that. So if you can give me a call and sometime tomorrow, Jamie, and I can give you more of the information on location and certainly how we can fix this thing. Working together on this.
I understand from the news, this is a national problem, and that there's been some movement by government against Airbnb as well as VRBO to change their terms of membership for the people who own these properties and what they're allowed to do with them, or else they'll be taken off that site to advertise the property, to be able to get a database. Yeah,
that's one area I know that our CAO has mentioned that they get in contact with the Airbnb organization, and because this is a public health issue as well as municipal bylaw issues that are being contravened through the noise bylaws and so forth.
But I think this is universal in North America, and there's pressure being put on those companies, Airbnb and VRBO, to change their way of doing business in the way of facilitating people to advertise on their sites. Now, I'm not dead sure of it, but I think there is some movement. Deputy Mayor Becchetti, I think I saw your hand come up too.
Yeah, just thank you, Chair. Just to add to Mayor McNamara's issue there, I've also received many calls, again, in particular with that same location. From what I understand, this Airbnb is unregulated, and I know the City of Windsor is looking at some kind of bylaw to regulate them. Toronto, there is some regulation. In our town, I think, is investigating that as well. So municipally, we're doing our part, what we can, but there's also a complaint hotline that you can complain on the location, and it's right on their website for the actual, you type in the location, you get an email, and I did a formal complaint myself, and I'll tell you, it's wishy-washy, that process. It says that we received your complaint, someone get a hold of you, and I wait in 24 hours, then I get an email a day later saying, we are contacting the host. We'll let you know in 48 hours. It's been 3 days. I've had no communication with them. Hopefully that process was they would get hold of the host. The host is the landowner, which the mayor is alluding to. Someone's got to get to them and pick up the phone and have a meeting. And instead of going through all these loopholes and say, hey, you want to be a good neighbor, well, there's issues here. And what can you do? Because they may not even know what's going on. They may think everything's honky-dory and it's fine. And so it's not getting to the owner. So that's the part I think we need to open up that communication. And like you say, have some new regulations, and you want to do business, you have to be neighborly. So we have to go after that. It's been 3-4 years now. I think this individual's been dealing with it, and
Wow.
they're frustrated. They sold their house. They moved out of that area. They said they've had enough. So that's how bad it was.
Well, there's three people that are three folks that have moved because of it. So it's, it's tarnishing the neighborhood and tarnishing the community. And so, yeah, they can come from the GTA and have their fun here and so forth. But it's the public health piece that I'm concerned about, the safety of our citizens, especially our neighbors.
Any other comments on that? All right, then, any other new business? Then I would note that our next meeting is scheduled to be Thursday, October the 15th, 2020, again at 4:30. And I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mayor McNamara, seconded by Paul Sweet. All in favor? Passed. Thank you very much for your attendance. And we'll see you in October.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone.